Hey everyone, it's Emily here, but most of you will know me as Adorkable Artwork on Instagram. So many of you have been asking me a lot of questions about colour theory, so I thought I would take the time to make an in-depth video going over the basic concepts of colour theory. This video overlaps a little bit with the other one that I've posted, but I feel as though this video will be more helpful, and I hope to make more videos like it in the future on other popular questions that I get asked, such as lighting. So for those of you who are just discovering me, I'm an amateur self-taught artist, and the information I'm relaying to you in this video is information I have learned in short art courses and from the internet. So the first thing I will talk about is the colour wheel. So the colour wheel shows relationships between primary colours, secondary colours, and tertiary colours. So basically, this thing helps you figure out what colours work together. So this wheel shows primary colours, secondary colours, and basic tertiary colours. And these colours are categorised based on a colour mixing sequence. For example, red to orange to yellow, and so forth. I would like to make a note that the primary colours used in this colour wheel are the ones relating to pigments and not light. So they're different, and if you're interested in knowing about the colour properties of light, I will make a separate video in time about it, or you can just look it up elsewhere. So for now, we are focusing on the colour properties of pigment colours, which is what artists more relate to. So what is a primary colour? So these are colours that cannot be made from a combination of any other colours. So when it comes to pigments, the primary colours are red, yellow, and blue. A secondary colour is a colour created by mixing two of the primary colours together. So for example, mixing red and yellow makes orange, mixing yellow and blue makes green, and mixing blue and red makes purple. So that's why the secondary colours are placed between their two respective primary colours. A tertiary colour is a colour that's been created by mixing a primary colour with an adjacent secondary colour. So for example, yellow and orange would make a yellowed orange. So these tertiary colours are placed between their respective primary and secondary colours on the colour wheel. Okay, so moving on to warm and cool colours. So the colour wheel can be split into two, separating what we call warm and cool colours. We associate colours like red, yellow and orange with things like a fire, which is warm, and blue, purple and green with things like water or an ocean, which is cool. So I will note that in the colour wheel I have made, the yellowed green looks to be a little bit more warm than it is cool, but that's because of the shade of colour I chose to represent it. Generally, the colour wheel can be split into two sections. So warm tones are considered aggressive colours, like how red is associated with anger, and they appear to come towards the eye more, and they're vivid and very in your face. So they're considered to be a louder colour because of this. Cool tones are considered passive colours, like how blue is associated with sadness and being reserved, and they appear to recede from the eye as they are more calm and soothing. They are considered to be a quieter colour because of this. So this is helpful to know when setting a mood in your work. It's also very handy to be able to differentiate between a warm and a cool tone, as blending a red and purple, for example, would be much easier to blend if the purple was a warmer toned purple opposed to a cooler toned one. And using a tertiary colour to blend a secondary colour and a primary colour together makes the transition of the blend a lot smoother and more pleasing. So it's very helpful to know the tertiary, the secondary, and the primary colours between the two colours that you wish to blend, as it will help you choose the right colours and the right tone of colour to use in the blending transition between the two original colours that you wanted to blend. So not only do you want to know what colours are in between, but you also need to understand the order in which they are in. It is also important to note that white, grey and black are considered to be neutral colours. Okay, so we have talked about the general kinds of basic colours that there are, but I would also like to talk about the variation of a single colour in which you can also get. The colours I have been talking about so far have been the hue. So the hue is the name of the colour itself, or in other words, it's a name of the pure pigment. So red is a hue, blue as a hue, etc., etc. But you can also get different intensities and values of a color. So the two variations I will talk about is saturation and brightness. So saturation is the intensity of color, which is determined by the level of white, grey, or black present in the color. So the saturation is how intense or how pure the hue is. The pure hue is the pigment with no white, grey, or black added to it. These levels of white, grey, or black is called the tint, tone, and shade of a colour, where tint is where white is added, tone is where grey is added, and shade is where black is added. On the diagram, from left to right, you can see how the hue has either white, grey, or black pigment gradually added to it. This gradually desaturates the pure hue, and the grayscale shades that the colours desaturate to correspond with the level of brightness of what those colours would look like relative to the strength of light. So in a grayscale image, you'd expect to see grey in medium light, white on a highlight, and black in a shadow. So you'd expect to find the pastel purples in a highlight and the darkened purples in a shadow. So just imagine these purple colours gradually wrapping around a curved surface to get different light values. So the brightness or value determines how light or dark a colour is. I have tried to show the value of a fully saturated colour compared with a desaturated version of that same colour in this teal diagram to help you comprehend what either colours would look like at the same value or brightness. So the only thing that has changed between these two colours is full saturation. So you can see on this larger red diagram what this particular red hue, which is located in the top right corner, would look like at different saturations and values. So it's easy to see in this diagram how you can get different shades of colour just by adjusting the brightness and the saturation of one pure hue. So note how a certain value can look at different saturations and how a certain saturation can look at different values. So this red diagram shows what the saturation would look like at different values. So obviously a highlight from a light source hitting an object wouldn't appear to be the fully saturated red colour. It would fade off into white or a desaturated version of that colour. So this is shown on this smaller white, red to black scale. I have included this sphere to show you what this scale looks like when applied to a curved surface. So imagine that a clear white light source is hitting this object from the left. On the left is where the brightest spot will appear on the object. This area will be coloured white or a very desaturated version of the pure hue with a high value. The brighter the light source, the more desaturated the highlighted area will become. In the absence of light, or in a shadow, the area also becomes less saturated and has a low value. I have altered the ball in this second picture to a slightly less saturated red in the shadowed region. In lower light situations, generally all colour is less saturated with a lower value, which I have shown in this next picture. Something else also happens when light is low or within a shadowed area. When an object is in natural light or warm light, generally the colour in the low light area acquires a cooler coloured hue, which I have shown in these next two pictures in the shadow. This is because in natural sunlight, generally everything reflects a warmer colour due to the sun appearing slightly yellow. So when the warm sunlight is absent in a shadow, what is left appears cooler. So this is due to our brains creating an illusion where the shadow appears to be of an opposite temperature of colour to the highlight. So this also applies to cool light situations where the shadows will be warm. So this can be further understood using colour harmonies. But before I mention colour harmonies, I'll just recap that saturation and value are important as it creates the illusion of depth, shape, and form when painted on a 2D object. If lighting is relatively neutral or warm, the shadows will appear cooler. If lighting is cool, the shadows will appear warmer. So generally, the colours in a shadowed area or in low light are less saturated with a low value, and colours in a highlighted area are generally less saturated with a high value. The midtones or base colour, known as the local value of the object, could be anywhere in between depending on the overall lighting and mood of your image. Just make sure that if your red ball, for example, is sitting in a warm light, to make the local value or the base colour of the red a more orange toned red, with orange tinted highlights, like the last ball picture. The rest of my red ball examples I have given are depicted in a white neutral light with no temperature. So hopefully now you can see how warm and cool tones, in conjunction with saturation and value, can make an object far more visually pleasing. So moving on to colour harmonies. But what is a colour harmony? So basically, it's the combining of colours in a manner that is harmonious to the eye. It helps us figure out what colours work well together and are visually pleasing. The harmonies I'm going to talk about are complementary, split complementary, analogous, triadic, and tetradic. So complementary colours. So complementary colours are two colours directly opposite each other on a colour wheel. So in this canyon example, the complementary colours are orange and blue. So this can be pleasing to look at because the colours create such a high and vibrant contrast and looks nice in high saturations. It's pretty simplistic, but it has a bold effect. Split complementary colours. So split complementary colours is almost the same as complementary colours, except instead of choosing two completely opposite colours, you choose two adjacent colours of one of those colours instead. This still creates a strong visual contrast, but creates less tension than just straight complementary colours. This example image uses orange, blue, and green. When using three colours, generally two will either be warm or cool tones, and the other will be the opposite. So in this case, there were two cool tones and one warm tone. So generally in these situations, you let the single temperature tones dominate the picture and let the other two accentuate it. So here the warm orange dominates the blue and green. Analogous colours. So analogous colours include the use of three adjacent colours. So this is beneficial to use in a setting where a certain temperature or feel wants to be created. This fall picture is a perfect example of how orange, yellow, and yellowed orange work harmoniously together to create a warm autumn feel in this image. Notice that the values or the brightness used for the colour is medium to high, indicating it's daytime even though the sky cannot be seen. The quite low value of the trunks can also show us that the light is coming from behind them. Triadic colours. So triadic colours is slightly different to split complementary colours, where the three colours are evenly spaced around the colour wheel, giving a maximum contrasting effect. Again, one colour will dominate and the other two will accentuate. I have given two examples, one with the three primary colours and one with the three secondary colours. So notice how bold the colours look with the blue, red and yellow. So this creates a nice contrast with the level of saturation in this picture. The other is in low light, so it's less saturated, but the way that they have been able to show off the orange light in the purple sky and on the green field has really completed this image nicely. You should also note how the bright light, or the high value of colour in this image, really attracts your eye when surrounded by lower valued colours. Tetradic colours. So tetradic colours is a combination of four colours that consists of two sets of complementary or opposite colours. This is rectangular in shape, where the short side of the rectangle consists of colours spaced with only one colour between them. I absolutely love this harmony. As most of you will know, I love using a wide range of colour in my artwork, so this picture resonates well with me and makes me feel extremely happy. This harmony creates a balance between warm and cool tones, and it works best if you let one colour mainly dominate. It creates such a rich coloured image, and the balances between the warm and cool tones are always very visually pleasing. The image can look more detailed this way, and it seems to keep the viewer interested for longer. So these are the main harmonies I have shown you. All of these rules are made to be broken, but for all of you starting out, this is a great place to start when choosing what colours to include in your image. So I dare you to explore these harmonies and break the rules. Mess around with saturation and value to create a certain mood. Explore the different temperature feels you can give your pieces. And even try putting both in one picture. So the possibilities are endless once you can understand all these concepts. I may only be an amateur myself, but I sure hope that I've helped others like me improve in the colour theory area. So thanks for staying for the full video, and let me know what you think, maybe even subscribe and give a thumbs up. And tag me in your work on Instagram, as I would love to see what you guys come up with, or at least how I may have helped. So yeah, until next time, stay colourful.